Hello and welcome back to Genesis Designs and Modelcraft Bench, and I've got a present. So this just arrived today. Royal Mail knocked on the door, and there's a box. I have taken the label off, but if some of you have had a box like this you might recognise that, but as you can see I've yet to open it. I decided to open this live on air, so live unboxing it is. Let's see what resides within the mysterious cardboard box. Not a particularly big cardboard box, to be fair. It's maybe 3 inches deep, about A3 in size. Oh, you can already tell, can't you? Look at that. Here it is, the Kotare Spitfire Mk1a, straight from New Zealand. Now, let me get this out of the box off camera, because I'm just going to hit everything if I try to do it underneath the camera. Golly. A load of extras in here. Alright, now because I pre-ordered this kit, and I pre-ordered this directly from Kotare Models in New Zealand quite some time ago, middle of last year honestly. The cost to me, I paid the full price for this kit. If I remember correctly, it ended up being somewhere around $140. So it was $109.99 purchase price, then VAT, then shipping. So actually, I think for us in the UK there are a few retailers who are selling these, and all things considered I think it's probably a better option to go to those than to go direct because of that. I definitely think you can get it for less money than that from a shop here right now, but when I pre-ordered it I didn't know if they were going to be imported in that way or not, because Wingnut Wings kits never really were. Because I pre-ordered it and then there were delays, the manufacturers have included this sort of heavy paper print of the box art, which is nice because it is very, very nice box art. So that's that. Put that to one side safely. There's also an essay printed out. A message from the proprietor, and this is it's essentially the history of the man, Mark Robson. This is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it like this, and I'm going to move it. And if people want to read this, I'm not going to read it out because it will take minutes. You can pause the video and work your way through that. It would appear that the proprietor of Kotare, Mr. Robson, and I share the same first model and age, although my 5-year-old Wellington kit was a Matchbox, not an Airfix, but nonetheless the same one. So there's a little bit of background there of the man, the company, and the reasoning behind this Spitfire Mk1a. Yeah, let's see what's in the box, shall we? Stop waffling, woman. I have not seen this kit before. I have seen a few photos, admittedly not good ones, but I've not seen the plastic myself at all yet. So quick looks. So another thing, because again the pre-order and the delays, Kotare have kindly included a 3D printed exhaust stub set as an upgrade. So I shall move this out of the way and we'll go through the packets in the standard way. So we'll start with this one. Sprue D. Why go through them in order? That would be boring. And clearly it doesn't take the brains of a bishop or me to tell you that this is the wings. Okay, let's see what we've got here. So obviously, this being the original Mark 1, we've just got the 4.303 machine gun, rifle caliber machine gun armament on each wing. And this is nice. There's a slight texture to the plastic. It's nothing to worry about. It's not rough enough to be a problem for the most part. The gun panels on the wing here are slightly raised above the surface, just ever so slightly. The rest of it is standard engraved panel lines. You've got a raised edge to that wingtip. There is a band that goes there. Likewise underneath, very slight texturing. These gun access panels are slightly higher than the rest of the wing. Yeah, most of the panels have got just a slight differentiation, which is good, because if you look at any real aircraft, even modern ones, they're very rarely absolutely perfectly flush, actually. That's very nice. Separate wing fillets. This isn't something I've seen since the Matchbox Spitfire 22/24, also in 32nd scale, so that's interesting. There's also the control column, which is in two parts there. I don't know what that part is. So inside, got a lot of ribbing on the inside. I know not why. Maybe, I don't know if there's any internal detail here yet. Obviously, you can see the wheel well details on the upper wings represented. It might just be so that the model is, you know, reasonably strong, because the Spitfire wing is actually very slim. From the front, the cord of it is very slim, so it can be a bit flimsy if it's modelled correctly. But we'll see. Separate ailerons, as you can see, obviously the fabric covered variant. We do have rib tape detail, and it is not excessive. Thank you, Kotare. Hopefully you can pick out that slight raising of those gun panels, which is, I think, quite a nice touch. So let's have a look at the next one. Now this is sprue E, and again, no great effort to pick out that the fuselage is contained herein. So let's see, points to note. It's very modular, isn't it? There are a surprising amount of variants and sub-variants that can be made even using this early fuselage pattern, and I'm assuming that the fact of all these sort of separate parts and areas and panels is going to help to allow for that as time goes on. Obviously, the more mileage they can get from the same basic set of tools, the easier it will be for them to make a bit of money and therefore stay in business. So that has to be applauded. We've got raised rivets on the rear fuselage. This is entirely correct. The real aircraft had raised rivets on the rear fuselage in the early variants. It also has some subtly overlapping panels, which I like, because again the real aircraft has that. I do like this texture where they've got these steps and overlaps. It's really nice. There's your elevator and your rudder, one piece rudder, it's not in halves. One piece tail planes, so they shouldn't be wonky. There's a fuel tank cover there. This is the base of the cockpit area. I'm not going to say floor because it's actually the bottom of the fuselage. And then the oil cooler cover, bottom of the cowling, and again we've got this texture going on. Kotare appear to have noticed that quarter turn fasteners do not in fact resemble donuts, and they've not reproduced them as such. Internally then, again we've got this structure in the areas that can't be seen, and in the areas that can be seen there's some representation of the riveting where the frames go. The frames obviously have a flat edge that's riveted, the skins are riveted to, and that's represented here, and obviously the kit frames will sit on it. But that detail is relatively basic. Although that is not to be taken as a criticism, because the cockpit isn't all that complex in a Spitfire. And we have a separate spine. I've not seen this approach before on a Spitfire kit. I've seen it in various others. This is the first time I've seen it on a Spitfire. The main benefit is it removes the necessity to clean up a centerline seam, but if you look at the surface detail here, it also allows the manufacturer to reproduce that properly, which they wouldn't be able to do if it was a complete fuselage half. So as long as it fits nicely, let's use this one, as long as it fits nicely where it's supposed to along here, it should save quite a lot of clean-up time. Noticing generally the quality of the mouldings is good, but it's not Tamiya level. It's reminiscent of something, but I'm not quite putting my finger on it. If it pops into my head, I will, of course, point it out. Sprue A then, and this one has got many of the smaller parts for detailing. The aforementioned fuselage frames here. Some of the lightning holes are holes, some of them are not. It's a very cheap, easy, quick upgrade to any model kit to drill these out, as they are holes on the real thing. We've got exhaust stubs over here. They are in halves. Propeller, spinner. It's part of the carburettor intake there, the rudder horn. Undercarriage doors and legs. There's your armour plate for the seat. Excuse me. Turn it upside down to get it under the camera better. Got the rudder bars there, and this is sort of the lower fuselage structure. Wheels. 5-spoke only, which are flattened to represent the weight of the aircraft with a bit of a bulge. And this is the wheel well walls here, which have that canted back stance that the wheel wells have, which makes them into a sort of an oval shape. They're not truly circular. Got a radiator bath there, which is all one piece. Makes a change. Lately every Spitfire kit out there seems to think they have to have 19 part radiator baths, which I find spectacularly irritating. All in all, everything looks very nice. There was a comment a while back that I moved the sprues too much. I'm sorry, it's the first time I've seen it too, so I'm just having a good look. Excuse me. So the undercarriage legs, the axles are actually a sort of a vertical tab. This will make for a fairly strong joint with the wheel, but also allows that location so that the flat of the tyre is actually on the ground when it's placed there, and it saves you the bother of trying to line it up yourself. Alright then, the last bag of plastic parts is here. Sprue B. We have another propeller and spinner. This is the blunt type spinner. We've got RX/1 written on that propeller boss. if memory serves, and I always get this the wrong way around, I think this is the Rotol type propeller arrangement, where the other one is the de Havilland. Yeah, they're both constant speed, but they're different designs. You see there, that one's got a load of numbers on it too, but principally among them it says DH. 5/29 alpha and 5/39 alpha, and that does have the more pointed spinner. So the blades are more slender and the spinner is more pointed. So yeah, it's a Rotol version. This is your oil cooler duct. Just here, obviously the top cowl. The firewall, or is it frame 5? A bunch of cockpit detailing parts, the pilot's seat. I'm going to bring you up so you can see these a little better. Camera's focusing nicely today. So there's your instrument panel. Sides of the seat and the main seat itself, and as you can see you have an option of moulded in belts or no belts. I don't mind moulded in belts if they're done nicely, and these are done quite nicely, but obviously it's nice that you have both options. Got the tail wheel over here all in one, and again it is flattened as the tyre on this is flattened also. And finally the sidewalls. This is where most of the detail is. The various gas bottles, oxygen bottles, throttle quadrant, it's all on there. And I think it's sword I'm thinking of. These parts remind me of sword. They've got that sort of dark glossiness and slightly irregular finish to them. And here we have the transparency. So that's all of the plastic parts covered. Transparencies here. So the only option we have is the initial sort of blown canopy, the sort of low blown canopy option, but we do have the choice of an open or a closed variant with armour plating. The sprue is labelled Spitfire Mk1a/2, and they are very, very nice transparencies. I think you'll agree. We've also got the ident lamp lens for the underneath the gun sight, a couple of square transparencies, I'm not sure what they are, and this is the spine nav light. But lovely and clear, there's no marks or scratches in them. There is not a seam along the centre. There is a little bit of distortion, but not enough for it to be an issue when fitted. Alright then, nitty gritty time. So here we have a decal sheet which is really big. It's just a touch bigger than an A4 size sheet. If you'll forgive me, do you know what, no, I will take it out. I wanted to leave it in the bag, but I'll leave it sealed, but I'll take it out. Can't review it through this tissue paper, can I? Here we go. Printed in Italy. AB cartograph. Doesn't say it is, but printed in Italy. Very, very glossy. Indeed. Very, very thin with very, very tight carrier film. If I get the reflection, you can see how there is almost none or almost no carrier film edge, if you know what I mean. Even on the sort of code letter blocks, they've cut it down to the minimum. You've got the doped patches for the guns, and these are very, very often included as decals, but have you ever noticed how they're always included as perfect rectangles, which in truth they aren't necessarily. I would imagine that the actual pieces of fabric that were doped on were relatively uniform, but the dope is coloured paint, and that gets put on beyond the piece of fabric that's going on, and thus you'll end up with a fairly messy sort of patch of red-brown streaks and things. And see how these decals aren't uniform, they've got wiggly edges, and so very, very nice. I like that. Full stencil detail, even down to these are the gun bay panels here, the little markings where the fasteners go to show that they're closed, to put on there. And a load of metallic decals down the bottom for data plates, serial numbers. We've also got instrument panels, instrument decals here, all separate or in small groups. Very, very nice decal sheet, I like it. Very nice. Let's look at the instructions, and this is the last thing in the box, but look at it. Goodness me. So on the front page of the instructions we've got quite a lot of information in the form of this history panel. I'll just push this up and try and get the whole thing. There you go. That's the whole lot in one frame, so if you want to read it in its completeness, you can pause the video and do so. They talk about the history of the aircraft, the part of that history which this kit set addresses, colour finishes, photographs, references, all that sort of thing. And I want to do a shout out right now actually for Richard Alexander. So he's headed up the team that have designed the kit, and it was his idea to do this one because he pointed out to the owner of the company that the Battle of Britain era Spitfire in this scale is a gap that's existed for over 50 years. And well done to him for that, and thanks for pointing it out and bringing this kit out, because I for one am quite thrilled about it. But let's have a look, see what's inside here. It's nice, really nice quality paper and printing. A few health and safety instructions on the left side there, and colour call outs, which they're choosing to use Tamiya, Humbrol and an FS or British Standard number where appropriate. Be careful of using FS numbers to do RAF colours that don't really match across, but you all know that anyway. Sprue diagrams and a little decal diagram there. Oh wow, look at this. Oh, how nice is this? So obviously construction begins, comma, as usual, with the cockpit. But not as usual. Look how detailed these instructions are. This is fabulous. Not only is it in colour and 3D CAD rendering, but they tell you what all of the things are. So, frame 8 and instrument board, gun heating ducts, rudder bar and control tube. This is like the old days where you can learn about aircraft through the instructions of your model kits. Do we remember them? I certainly do. There's a real life photograph in the top there as well for reference, and a little bit of information below it, pointing out some points of interest, honestly. A very comprehensive colour call outs as we go through, as you can see from these colour droplets. They do suggest that you might like to drill out the holes in the frames here. Drill out holes in frame 11 as shown for more detail. Like it. Likewise here at the top. Drill out the holes for more detail. Now I did see this part on the sprue and I was a little bit confused initially as to what it was, and I thought maybe it was flare shoots, but didn't want to say it irretrievably on YouTube and make myself look like an idiot, but turns out I could have, because it says they are flare shoots. And then down at the bottom here, so your cockpit area is, you know, essentially nearing completion here. So then there's a rigging diagram for the cockpit. So you can add the control wires to your controls, all different colours, so that you can see where they go and how they route, even down to how you attach the harness at the back there. That is fantastic, and it's worth keeping for reference for every single other Spitfire build you do. More paint information, again very, very thorough, and another real life photo interjection. It says mid-production 234 Squadron Spitfire Mk1a, which is N3277, shortly after capture. Compare the appearance of the relatively clean front bottom cowling with the heavily stained oil tank behind. When the undersides of the main planes were repainted in a sky mix at 234 Squadron, the wheels, wheel wells, struts and insides of the undercarriage doors remained in their factory night and white finish. Nice point of interest. Okay, we're still working on the cockpit here, but putting the finishing touches now. Another couple of real life photos at the bottom here, showing sort of how they've come up with those painting instructions actually. Give you time to read that. Then we carry on, and this cockpit is built up into a sort of it's built up into a complete sub-assembly, much like the Tamiya 32nd Spitfire originally did, and most other good Spitfires since have followed that lead, as does this one. And then that adds in a unit straight into the fuselage halves, much easier than lining everything up and trying to trap it between the halves. And then you join said halves. And as we noted earlier, the amount of seam work that will have to be done on these because of that insert for the spine and the separate nature of everything else is going to consist of the leading edge of the fin and just the underneath from the wing back. That's it. Big time saver. Don't forget to paint these details before putting things together. Next up, exterior. Another little bit of rigging to go in. Don't forget to put the ident lamp in the top. Drill holes for more detail again. And it's showing you open or closed cockpit door options. If you wish to have drooped elevators, then remove the tabs, it says there. And another real life reference photo there. Moving on to the wings, or the main planes. There is an almost full width spar to go along with all that ribbing. And that part I could not identify initially was the guns. Again, offering you to drill the holes for more detail and telling you to do so at 0.2mm. It's the addition of the wheel wells and then sandwiching them all together with the upper surfaces. And then the fillets are added to it, so you end up with a sort of conventional finished wing structure to add to your fuselage. There's another insert there showing the fabric stitching, and then a nice big photo there with lots of information being pointed out. Moving on to the cooling system here, again with photographs to back up the things. Optional rigging and rods, material not supplied, 0.5mm wire or round stock of some sort at 6mm long to add the braces on the door, as you can just see in this photograph just here. And then the assembly of the wing to the fuselage easy for you to say, slide wings rearwards for a good fit. And a detail photo there at the bottom. Note the camouflage demarcation line, and by that they mean the fact that it doesn't actually follow the cowling fastener line, it's slightly below it. This is brilliant, I love this, I could sit and read this for hours. Undercarriage details shown in that photograph at the top, and here we are adding the undercarriage to the model. Another suggestion to drill out the up locking holes for more detail, in a sort of scrap view cutaway to show the angles and the way everything's supposed to sit inside the wing, which is a hugely useful addition actually. Sometimes it's difficult to visualise how things are supposed to fit together when the instructions only show it in this manner, like here, but with the addition of that it makes it much easier to understand what you're trying to achieve. And some more detailed photos there with appropriate information. Details. De Havilland propeller and spinner, Rotol propeller and spinner, and photographic examples of both. And then you're adding all the other assorted sort of bits and pieces across the airframe, and at the bottom a fairly large reproduction, although it is a bit grainy, showing some exhaust manifold stubs. A nice statement which I've said for many years now, no one listens. The exhaust manifolds were supplied by Rolls-Royce and made from Inconel, an alloy that does not rust. Pauses for effect. Brackets, even after 4 decades under a Calais beach. Say no more. Fitting the canopy, more detail there showing the open cockpit door, the stenciling and what have you. Note the lack of a crowbar. The early aircraft did not have them fitted. And another rigging diagram to show you the admittedly quite simple rigging for the aerial. Even give you a size, 0.05mm. That's a first, I've never seen that pointed out before. Stencil details or decals shown here, with hints and tips, so some of the schemes may not have had some of the stencils for various reasons. Oh my word. I'm glad I did this live now. This is brilliant. Look at this. So the first scheme then, scheme A. Despite the fact that I much prefer aesthetically the de Havilland propeller system, I will almost certainly have to do this option because it's just one of those iconic aircraft, and I know there were several Kiwis, there wasn't just one, but I read Aldir's book. One of my first memories of Spitfire models was the 124 Super Kit from Airfix, which of course featured one of the KLBs. It's just ingrained, so it would be very difficult for me not to do this one. Plus, for some reason, I'm a real fan of the black and white undersides with the absurdly outboard roundels. I just think it looks nice. So this is N3180, one of the Kiwis, as I say. I think there were 3 in the end, and this one ended up on the beach at Dunkirk. Went into combat over the beach and ended up landing on the beach, and it got back, but the aircraft didn't, clearly, as you can see here. All of the information is here. Second scheme, N3277 AZH or Dirty Dick, and this is another one which is ingrained into so many British modelers because these are the markings that the little Airfix Spitfire 1 in 72nd had for so many years. I myself have built that kit probably 3 times with these markings over the years, so it's another hugely significant choice for British modellers anyway. If memory serves, I think this one was captured by the Germans. Let me see, does it say anything about that here? Yes, it was. And these photographs are from the time when it was in German hands. Standard, this is a standard later Battle of Britain scheme with the sky undersides, and it's showing you here about the fact that the wheels and undercarriage are still black and white. Which makes sense because I guess they would have put the wheels up when they painted it. And finally, yet another very significant choice for modellers, DWK. This is P9495, and this one pops up an awful lot in models, doesn't it? But principally the Tamiya Mk1a and 48th. Again, loads of historical data to go with it. Photographs of the pilot, of the aircraft itself. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Why more model companies don't do this? And it it carries on. More photographs, really nicely reproduced, of real aircraft at the time, period correct, showing all these painting and finishing details and explaining them for you as well. Absolutely brilliant stuff. I genuinely think they could get money for this instruction booklet alone. An interesting close-up here, you can actually see how that roundel is hand painted in this picture. This is Kiwi 3. And this is Kiwi 2. Photos of some of the team. Brilliant. And there's a back cover. Absolutely outstanding. Can't knock that in any way, shape or form. Phenomenal. So there you go. That is the trot through the new Kotare. I don't know if I'm saying that right, and I apologise if I'm not, but I believe Kotare is native New Zealand for kingfisher, and there is a kingfisher on the box. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful, lovely rendition. I think the plastic parts alone, from this first glance, potentially don't really justify the admittedly relatively high cost of the kit. But the package as a whole absolutely does. And it's worth remembering, if people are thinking it's really very expensive for what it is, that this is a tiny company that have just started. They're not going to be able to make things as cheaply as the big manufacturers can. They're just not. And if they carry on working to this standard and producing things this nice, I'm quite happy to support them, to carry on buying them. I'm not particularly sad about what I've paid for this kit. It's absolutely beautiful. I love the early Spitfires. I do. They are my favourite ones, and I'm very excited about actually building this kit. There are going to be multiple Spitfires in my future this year. I can see that. So there we go. I think this is beautiful. It's beautiful all round. Absolutely stunning. I'm so pleased I've got it. Thank you so much, Kotare, for producing it and getting it to me relatively promptly from that pre-order. And so with that said, it only remains for me to say, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out.